And welcome, welcome one and all to once again this lovely trip into Brexit land. Now, of course, as you can see on the screen at the moment, don't worry, we will be getting to Jeff Taylor. Do not panic. But I just want to finish off my thoughts on Andre Walker, because don't worry, we will be covering him and his glorious mess, as you can see on the screen here. I've been tuned in while I've been preparing for this, and oh my, and I came to the conclusion. I know what it is, and now I know exactly what it is on Andrew Walker that's got me about this, and it sums it up with his video title, if you can see it. His video title says, "The EU wants to destroy Britain." Andre Walker is forever stuck in the year 2016. For him, 2016 never came to an end. It's always the 27th of June, 2016, when we woke up on that morning to find out that we'd left the EU. But that's certainly what it seems like watching him. I mean, the guys that he has on his channel are exactly the same, all spouting the exact same nonsense that we've been hearing even before 2016. I mean, they were talking about the EU army and about how we might get brought into the EU army as well, even though we're not part of the EU anymore. I don't know how that works. I have no idea how this actually works in their crazy world, but there you go. So before we kick off in our visit to Jeffland, please do remember to hit that like and share and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. We will be, of course, talking continuously about Brexit for many years to come, and of course we talk about British politics on this channel. It's what we do. And of course, a lot of Yorkshire loving, as you can see in the background. Again, unfortunately, my green screen's still deciding to have a fit. I don't know whether it's the camera, whether I haven't got the green screen set up right, but you know what? It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But anyway, that, of course, is this guy. So, on to our main event, because we didn't come here today to talk about Andre Walker. We came to talk about this guy. Oh, hang on, I've done that wrong. We came, hang on, when I get it right, because I've got to press the share audio button. Share audio. There we go, that's better. There we go. Because we're here to talk about this guy. This is our main, this is our meat today. This is our meat and potatoes. This is today's lunch, or today's dinner. This is today's dinner. Yeah, that's it. It's better. This is today's dinner. Good old Jeffy Taylor. Oh, so I do hope you're ready. Do hope you're ready. Oh, because I'll tell you what, last week when we were covering Andre Walker, I was desperate to cover Jeff, because Jeff, I don't know, Jeff's got that certain something about him where it's easy to watch, whereas Andre really isn't easy to watch. It's like Andre spews out like 3 lies in under a second, and then it's like how do you respond to that much nonsense? Nonsense. Please do something about your backdrop. Yeah, I know. The backdrop today is not. It's not fully with it. Although, don't know if that slightly better. There we go. Yeah, I don't know what it is today. Unfortunately, with the backdrop, we're gonna have to live and learn with it for the time being. I think I need to get a light. I think if I get a light to shine on it, that should help better with it. But yes, yeah. So we're talking about good old Jeff Taylor again today. Back on the Jeff train. And before we again jump into Jeff, please do remember that obviously if we are looking for more Brexiteers to cover. So if you know more people like Jeff Taylor or Andre Walker, or there's the other guy, I can't remember his name now, but there's another really big, like really pro-Brexit channel. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but please do let me know about them. That's it. Mahar Toshi. That's the guy I think it is. That's at least the guy I think he is, or it might be someone new. Can't remember now. But yeah, we're looking for more people to cover on these Wednesday live streams. Next Wednesday, I can reveal that next Wednesday we will be looking at Darren Grimes. And if you don't know who Darren Grimes is, he's basically the T-boy at the Guido Fawkes blog. The guy who literally sold out his working class roots to try and get a job at GB News, and they turned him down, essentially. So, yeah, we will be covering him next week. So look forward to that, because oh boy, if you saw him trending today on Twitter, his comment about how the Tories were what were they? They were the Tories were now the party of the working class. That's why he was trending today. And it's like, that's content. That's content right there. So, oh yes, and dudes, you also showed this as well today. So this was another thing that was trending today, and I think one of the London Assembly members pointed out how Boris and the Tories, who were in charge in London at the time, instead of building, affordable housing, instead they went and built a load of luxury housing. So you now have, as dude's saying here, a 35-meter high swimming pool between two high rises, instead of what should have been an area of development for low income housing. That's what they got instead. So also, again, topics that I haven't covered yet, but don't worry, I will do. The Heinz. I wonder if Jeff's going to mention the Heinz factory moving to the UK, creating, wait for it, a grand total of 50 jobs. we might get that today. Or I wonder if Jeff Taylor, or old Jeffy, or Jeffy baby, if Jeff will talk about the fact that, Tim Martin from the boss of Witherspoons has come out today and said that the UK government needs to be more lenient on EU immigration because he's having an employment crisis in his pubs. Are we shocked? Are we shocked? Interesting article that, again, I went over today on that. Sorry. Asked the very interesting question, when is it going to be politically viable to talk about rejoining the EU again? I don't know if we'll go over it. It was quite a short one, but yeah. Yeah, so, Jeff, on to our main course. So, I think we'll start off with his latest one, literally fresh out of the oven, no more than 30 minutes ago. So, the title is An EU Army by the Back Door, SNP Imploding, and UK Massive New Trade Deal. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Is this gonna be fun? Oh. So, hold on. We've got to speed up Jeff because he is terminally slow when he speaks. So we've got to speed him up. So there we go. So let's find out together what Jeff has got to say on these three topics.
Hello there. Are we witnessing an attempt to get the UK into a post-Brexit EU army?
No. The EU does not have that structure, nor if it had that army, how is it going to fund that army? All these questions and more, I'm sure Jeff will be loving to tell us.
As per usual, please like, subscribe, and comment below. During the Brexit deal,
and of course, yes, if someone on the Brexiteer channel is going to recommend you do that, then I definitely recommend that you do that to my channel. So please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Although you are already commenting in the live chat, so crack on, guys. You're already there. So do remember to go hit that like button. So let's find out more about this dreaded, dastardly EU army. Another thing that the Brexiteers have continuously claimed was going to happen and never happened.
Negotiations, Boris Johnson refused to tie the UK into the EU defence project. But now that some of the Brexit dust is settling, we suddenly hear that Germany, France, and Italy want to strike some sort of defence deal or deals with the UK.
So, first of all, the EU Defence Pact, or I can't remember what it was. I can't exactly remember what the full title is, but we'll just call it that for the time being. So, essentially, what this is it is not creating an EU army. I repeat, it is not creating an EU army. What this essentially intends to do, first of all, it wants to increase the cooperation and ease for member nations states forces to be able to cooperate together and perform joint operations easier with each other. That was the first thing. The next one it wants to do is that it wants to build its own defense industry. The core one of this was that Europe should have its own defense industry so that Europe does not have to rely so much on the US defense industry. I've got no objections to that. Not only that, different countries buy things for defense-wise from different countries. Not only that, our weapons industry, I think, again, is quite a substantial amount of GDP for our for the UK. So doing a deal with the EU for defense, probably a pretty good idea. But there you go. So
The Express reporting, talks are reported.
So it's coming from the Express. So it's coming from the Express, that bastion of truth and, you know, fantastic journalism. Yeah, words fail me. But then again, Jeff is literally the living embodiment of the Express, so we can't really blame him for repeating what's typed in it. So
being conducted behind the scenes by ambassadors, ministers, and their teams to see if there is a way for the countries to strengthen ties with the UK. The development comes after Britain said it was not interested in forging closer security and foreign policy cooperation ties with the EU.
Just there we go. So, from a foreign policy analysis, the UK not seeking closer security and foreign policy cooperation ties with the EU is incredibly dumb. Incredibly dumb. Because, as we've said before, Brexit is being driven by this imperial nostalgia. You know, people, all these countries used to listen to us, and you know, when we said something, you know, they went and did it. Not anymore. Not anymore. Like I say, back then we had an empire and a massive fleet to essentially back up that empire. And if you didn't do what we said, then if you look at the history books, two things would happen. First of all, either a battleship or a ship would turn up, or a couple of ships, depending on the size of the port, would turn up at your ports. And then they'd basically say the exact same thing. Hey, do this, or else we're going to absolutely wipe out this port. And a lot of countries had to do that because we were quite technologically superior in terms of naval armaments at that time. So that's what they did. Or the second way, what we'd do is we'd look at who was in the royal family, who was maybe next in line, who might be, shall we say, more pro-British. And then they would get buttered up, given huge amounts of gifts and money and gold, you name it. And basically, we'll help back you overthrow the current ruler who isn't ready to sign our trade agreements, but you are, so we're going to put you in charge. And thus, not only did the British Empire have colonies, it had protectorates that essentially did as they were told. That can no longer be achieved because it just simply can't. Unless the Brexiteers and people like Jeff who spout this nonsense are actually deadly serious about trying to reform the British Empire. I can't make my mind up. I really, really can't. But that's what we appear to be going ahead with. And foreign policy wise, this is so stupid. So stupid. And yes, dude, you are right. It could be worse because Fox News has ruled the US for the last 4 years. And of course, we've got GB News starting soon in the UK. Fun times. Fun times ahead. So, again, foreign policy wise, this doesn't make a bit of sense. But we do also know that recently, behind the scenes, British diplomats have been going on what has been described as a diplomatic assault to EU member states to try and cut bilateral deals. So even the Conservatives know full well the damage that leaving the EU has done and the amount of how much, we've discussed this before, trade gravity is a thing. Countries always trade with their closest neighbors. Doesn't matter how small the world has become, that is still a thing. Not only that, trade flow, still a thing, still a very observable thing. Not going to change too much. If a company, say up north, has done business with a company in Amsterdam for years, how on earth is it going to start doing business in Japan or Australia? It's not. It's not at all. And trying to get into a new market is incredibly hard. Incredibly hard. So the idea that they can bust into these new markets and succeed, again, how? I'd love to know. But there you go.
Operation ties with the EU. And this comes soon after The Guardian reported back in March that a 5-year defence review published on Monday confirms the army target size will be cut by 9,500 to 72,500 by 2025, its lowest level since 1714, towards the end of the War of the Spanish Succession. The number of Navy frigates and destroyers will drop from 19 to 17 in the next 18 months. A third of...
So essentially the UK here is drastically cutting its army budget and drastically cutting the numbers of frigates, which in terms of power projection, that's not really going to look good for us. Operating in the beyond the Aden. All it is going to be a massive waste of money. But there you go. I mean, I wonder if Jeff is going to actually be against the cutting of the army and the navy. I generally wonder if he's going to be against. I'll be very surprised if he's for. I'm very surprised if he's for it.
Of the Army's Challenger tanks will be scrapped, while 148 will be upgraded at a cost of £1.3 billion. You have to wonder if a lot more defence-related backroom chat in smoke-filled rooms has been taking place than we are led to believe.
Oh, Jeff. Oh, Jeff, engaging in conspiracy theories. Oh. So, if I'm to get this right from Jeff here is saying that he is pretty darn certain that essentially the UK government, our UK Tory government, who was brought in by a coup to initiate a very, very hard Brexit, has essentially decided that it's going to secretly join the EU army. That is an absolute out-and-out conspiracy theory. What more do you have to say about that? Again, I'm generally lost for words, but this is the level of intelligent thinking that thought it would be a good idea to leave the EU.
And it's so much easier to do these sorts of cost sharing and ultimately power sharing deals when you can claim national security and stamp top secret on the front of the document, never to be seen by the public or their representatives.
Yes, so he's absolutely engaging in out-and-out conspiracy theories there. That is a 100% conspiracy theory.
In fact, you'd have to be either the byproduct of 300 years of intergenerational inbreeding or Nick Clegg to believe that the EU is not looking to bring the UK under the jurisdiction of a pan-European army controlled from Brussels.
Not Jeff. Brexit's happened, Jeff. The thing that you long sought and wanted apparently has happened, and yet you are still complaining about the fact that an EU army is going to be created, and somehow Britain's going to be a part of it. Yeah. And you are right. Oh, missed that one. You are right there, Gerald. You really can't make it up. You really can't make that up. But that is what he's engaging in. He's absolutely out and out engaging in incomplete conspiracy theories. And the thing is, we would know if there was an EU army being created because it would be in the EU Parliament being brought forward to be voted on. That's something that the EU Parliament might actually want to vote on. But, we just know how the EU works. Again, doesn't take a lot to do that. And yes, Helen, unfortunately, a lot of people do take Jeff seriously. A lot of people. He has over 100,000 followers. Like a lot of people have said before, being a right winger on YouTube is easy mode. It's when you go left wing like me, that's when you turn on hard mode.
And while the French seem keen to do this, we have their president standing on the ramparts and waving his fist at us over fishing rights. But
fishing rights that we escalated, Jeff. Fishing rights that we took away from essentially the fishermen close to the Channel Islands, who, under a bilateral agreement between them, which Brexit completely scuppered, they can no longer fish there. And they go on with that very, very well.
Macron's chest puffing and boorish threats are growing as stale as his country's cheese. The last time the French got the better of the...
French cheese is actually very good, Jeff. So I won't hear a word against French cheese.
English was in 1066, and that was sheer luck.
So for those of you who heard that, apparently, the French haven't got the better of us since 1066. And apparently that was just luck. So not only does Jeff and co seem to want to bring back the British Empire, they also seem to want to restore the Anglo-Saxon monarchy as well. That's right, we need to get back to the Godwinson line. Elizabeth and her German ancestry is not good enough for this country anymore. We need to get back to the proper German Anglo-Saxon roots that came from Germany to rule this country after the Romans left. Not until we're back, until the Godwinson line, can that actually happen. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And not only that, by the way, Jeff, who won the 100 Years' War? Oh, right, the French did. They actually won a lot of other conflicts. In fact, in terms of conflicts in Europe, France has been the biggest participant in conflicts and has been probably the biggest winner in European conflicts. Also, there was the time where we had a French king. People don't know about this guy, but again, a bit of elusive British history for you. When John I, the brother of Richard the Lionheart, was on the throne, and he was currently in the process of being dethroned by the barons. He hadn't yet signed the Magna Carta, but the barons who were revolting brought in the French king, Louis I. And guess what? For all intents and purposes, he ruled England. He ruled England. And of course, this is how delusional I think history, when Brexiteers talk about history, really is. We have a great lie we like to tell ourselves, that we've only ever been successfully invaded once. We actually haven't. We've been successfully invaded 2 times. Once by the French in 1066. Actually, no, a number of times actually, because we had kings bringing in foreign armies, Swiss mercenaries during the War of the Roses period. So yeah, again, that's the whole thing. There's a history. Look, history is a wonderful thing, guys. It really is. It really is. But we have this little incident we like to call the Glorious Revolution that happened after the death of Charles I, and of course, that was when the Dutch came and invaded, and essentially we had a Dutch king. We call it the Glorious Revolution. In the Netherlands, they call it the Dutch invasion of England. Historical perspective. To one nation, it's a glorious revolution. To another, it's just an invasion. Oh, by the way, consequences of which maybe we'll end up talking about later on today, because it plays heavily into the conflict about Northern Ireland. Oh.
I think it's best if we stay very cool on these defence agreements with those who have recently not proved to be reliable friends and partners. And next we come to the Scottish National
That's a bit of a sweepy transition there you've got, Mr. Taylor.
Party. Now, looking at the news coming out of Scotland, you would think the wheels were about to spin off the SNP wagon. We've only just had the Holyrood elections where we saw Nicola Sturgeon's SNP just miss an overall majority by 1 seat, and in the process politically burying her now bitter enemy Alex Salmond and his new Alba party. But now we have an SNP chief executive, Peter Murrell, who is Nicola Sturgeon's husband, who seems to have become the invisible man. One of the SNP leading lights,
Is Jeff suggesting here about a guy being overshadowed by his wife? Is that what he's trying to get at during this? Because the thing is Jeff is obsessed with the SNP, absolutely obsessed, and it's not his only video about the SNP he makes. He makes quite a number of, shall we say, videos about the old SNP. I haven't really got a lot to say on it, but probably Jeff is massively over exaggerating and over egging the pudding, shall we say, when it comes to talks about the SNP.
The MP for Edinburgh South West, Joanna Cherry, resigning from the SNP National Executive Committee over lack of transparency in the party, as well as the recent resignation of the party's national treasurer, Douglas.
You know what that's actually shocking about? People probably quitting the government for reasonable reasons. Something which has never ever happened in the entire history of our government.
Chapman MP, who said he wasn't given enough financial information to do his job. But now we hear that the head of the SNP's Independence Task Force, Marco Biaggi, has publicly resigned while making a dig at the party. He said on Facebook that it was a situation of being the best job offer I've ever had, turning out to be the worst job I've ever had, and publicly quit it. Not only that, he took a sideswipe at his former constituency of Edinburgh Central that chose Angus Robertson over him, saying they would rather have a pompous, impressionable idiot than me. On top of this,
if that's a Tory that replaced him, then probably I agree. Yeah, wow. Isn't Jeff a failed MP? I think he ran for UKIP, because I think you can still find Jeff's UKIP Facebook page. I think it is of him running. At least I think you can. At least I can't remember if it's his Facebook page or there are still videos of him on UKIP's YouTube page where he is running for a Member of Parliament. From what I remember, it's one of those two.
3 members of the SNP NEC Finance and Audit Committee quit their posts a few months ago over a lack of transparency concerning the finances of the SNP. Now, a lot of people are talking about this, and not just SNP supporters or otherwise, and not just those in Scotland. But the only people steering well clear of this whole SNP manure heap are the press. Is it too smelly even for them?
Oh. So, obviously, something like that going on in the EU army, not the EU army, in the EU army, in the SNP, probably pretty bad. If I was an SNP member and it came out that there was a lack of transparency over our finances, I'd be probably pretty annoyed, or at least be asking, what's going on? why are people resigning over this, saying, there isn't enough transparency, I don't have enough information to do my job. Shockingly enough, Jeff here has not made one single video about Cummings' testimony just a week ago today. He hasn't made a single video. Is that even too dirty for Jeff Taylor to do to take a video on? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe it's a topic just too dirty for Jeff.
Why are they not doing what they're paid to do by getting answers to the questions ordinary people are asking? Scotland deserves far better than Sturgeon and the SNP. And if the Scottish people follow her route to independence, they would soon live to regret it.
Ooh.
I wouldn't trust Nicola Sturgeon and her mob in a round of drinks, let alone with their national budget. And that...
So that was Jeff's SNP bashing. Like I say, not really big on, like I say, the goings on in Holyrood and Scottish politics. Not really something I follow. But yeah, that basically sounds to me like if I was covering that, I'd be okay. There's something odd going on in the finance department. Hey, SNP, you need to get to the bottom of it. That's not exactly like the biggest demand ever. I mean, we've just had a case of our own prime minister purchasing vastly overpriced and tacky wallpaper and then not knowing who's funded it. We've also just had the revelation that two companies gave money to the Conservative Party who didn't exist. How many other, shall we say, fly-by-night companies were set up, donated to the Conservative Party, and then just closed down? Might be something worth investigating there, Jeff. And of course, Jeff won't do any videos on that.
Now we come to Liz Truss and a very large and promising trade deal. The UK's accession to become a member of a massive trade bloc can now begin.
Oh, are we going to join the EU? Are we going to join the single market? No, this is the news that has been coming out today, that the UK is going to try and join the TTP. And I genuinely am shocked at this, but this is actually a fantastic opportunity to get back at all these Brexiteers. So when you see a Brexiteer like Jeff here, who's crowing, I'm sure we'll get to his crowing in a minute, about joining the TTP, just remember all those arguments that they made against not wanting to be in the single market and not wanting to be in the customs union. Every single argument, I can guarantee you almost to the letter, every single argument that Jeff is probably about to give here for joining the TTP is, if not the same, and if not probably more valid, for us joining the single market and customs union. But of course, the TTP is fine because, it's not European.
The 11 countries comprising the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership Trading Bloc, or CPTPP, have a
Oh my God, we've got.
trade bloc.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Now begin. The 11 countries comprising the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership Trading Bloc, or CPTPP, have agreed.
I'm sorry, but I had to do it. I had to do it. Also, by the way, did you hear? Jeff can actually say protocol. He can actually say protocol. You heard him say it then, and heard him say it properly, not as he does normally, protocol. Shockingly enough, Jeff can actually say protocol when he wants to. And just as Father Ted once said, these things are small. This is large. This is small because it's far away. This is big because it's close. And of course, we won't be getting a probably an impact assessment of us joining the TTP, not surprisingly, or the CCPPT. So yeah, gonna be good. Gonna be good.
Today that the UK can commence the accession to membership process.
Oh, I hope we get rejected. I hope we get rejected, because two things are going to happen. Two things are going to happen here massively. First of all, either people like Jeff are going to throw an absolute hissy fit about this, or they will find some way to blame the EU. Because if you've looked at the articles that we've done from the Australian deal and the Japanese deal, both of those experts who happen to be Australian and Japanese have both commented on the fact that it does not make sense for Britain to be joining this. Does not make sense at all. So I also don't know what the political will of those countries to let the UK join, because why are they going to let the UK join when it's a country that's on the other side of the planet? Doesn't make sense.
This will come as a huge boost to the UK economy, and very welcome news for our International Trade Secretary Liz Truss, and of course the Prime Minister.
Probably not, because again, it's only going to benefit those countries that are in that close proximity to each other. We are not. We are on the other side of the world. And this also should bring up very worrying news. We've also seen in the Australian trade deal that there is a secret court system where businesses can sue our government for regulations or laws that they don't like. And like I say, how is this market actually going to be regulated? How is who's in control of this market? You know, all this stuff for the TTP has actually yet to be figured out. And what's funny about this is that this organization is based exactly on the EU. Oh dear. It's going to be an absolute mess. And like I say, I'm waiting as we are normally in these types of things for the economists to weigh in. We've already seen a lot of economists say that this isn't going to have a massive impact on our economy. What we're waiting for at the moment is the actual studies that look into this. We may or may not get an impact assessment report from the government. We don't know. We're going to have to see.
The CPTPP is a trade agreement between Australia, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, and Vietnam, with a total population.
And they're all in the Pacific. That's what unites them. They are all in the Pacific. Why are we going to join? And Jeff is about to probably announce, I've already heard his little spiel about, the population, it's about the fastest growing trade area in the world. It's like the number one place of like growing wealth in the world. Yes, that area. Us just joining that area is going to have very little impact on our economy. Very little impact.
Of 500 million, and the UK is the first non-founder member to apply to join this Pacific Rim bloc.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense for us to join because we are not in the Pacific. It does not make sense for us to join it.
And as Liz Truss said in a Commons debate in early February, the CPTPP is one of the most important free trade areas in the world, accounting for 13% of global GDP in 2019. CPTPP GDP would rise to 16% if the UK were to join.
Based on what? I have to ask, based on what? Because with these trade agreements, as we've seen other trade blocs forming around the world, they have only benefited those countries in close proximity. In the South African Union, no country outside of the South African countries has joined. There is a trade bloc comprised of the North American countries. None of those outside that area have joined. Because shockingly enough, and strap yourselves in, because this is going to be a revelation to you, I'm sure. Sending stuff Sending stuff from one country to another costs money. And I know that sounds like such a complicated concept to grasp, but Brexiteers can't actually seem to grasp that concept. I know, Nicholas. No way. No way. How on earth can we share that? And what's interesting here is that somehow us joining this bloc, if it's accounting for current 13% of the global GDP, how is it going to rise to 16%? That's a rise of 4%. How does that rise actually happen? And who does that rise actually benefit? Not only that, will any of that wealth actually flow to the UK? If you, as we've mentioned before, things like trade flow, if you actually look at a map of trade flows, none of that trade flow would reach us. It would not benefit the UK. Hence, you'll notice that so far at the moment, our government is not posting any figures of how the UK might actually benefit from this block. So it doesn't make sense for us to go and join the CPTPP. Just as the guys in Australia and the Japan trade expert said, doesn't make sense for us to join those. Not one bit.
And with global GDP at about 85 trillion US dollars, despite COVID, that would have the UK as a part of a 13.6 trillion US dollar enterprise.
That's great to know, Jeff, but how is any of that going to actually benefit Britain? Even if we're a part of it, there is no guarantee that Britain is going to get a slice of that pie. But that is the thinking, the current thinking of the Conservative Party, that for some reason, if we go and join this bloc, somehow, the UK will profit. It's the classic do something else, question mark, then profit. Yeah, you are right. What we are seeing here is simple Jeffonomics. Welcome to the new pro-professional economic outlooks that we are all now going to have to get very intimate and learn about in the future.
And that compares favorably with the 15.5 trillion US dollar GDP for the EU from 2019, when the UK still contributed its $2 trillion plus dollars.
Again, that doesn't make sense. Why is us joining that going to enable us to get a slice of that pie? Economically, it doesn't make sense. Trade flow wise, it doesn't make sense. Trade gravity wise, where countries trade more with their closest trading partners. By the way, in the UK's top 10 trading partners, the only non-EU countries are China and the US. All these other countries that Jeff have mentioned, Japan is 13th, and I don't even think the rest might even be in the top 20.
But the CPTPP trade bloc does not insist on rewriting UK law, nor does...
Oh, not yet, because we don't know what form it's going to take. Because here's the thing, if you are establishing a single market, then you've got to have a single source of regulation. Who decides on those regulations, Jeff? I do hope that Jeff isn't suggesting that we swap from our Brussels overlords to our new Pacific overlords. Yeah, this is just completely ridiculous in every single shape and form. Economically, it doesn't make sense. Politically, it doesn't make sense. We're going to have corporate courts potentially, not only just with the Australia trade deal, but other things as well. We've already set a very worrying precedent for putting forward 0% tariffs of agricultural products. We are still waiting on the full text of what is actually in the rest of that Australian trade deal. So if they've given 0% tariffs away on the agricultural front, what else might they choose to, shall we say, lower tariffs on next? And it's not just Australia. Canada is also now asking for the same thing, and so will the US. And boom goes the UK agricultural industry.
Does it insist that we take on a new currency and open borders, nor does it have an overbearing commission peeking into every facet of our lives, while an actively compliant parliament rubber stamps all it does.
Not yet. Not yet, Jeff. Not yet, but it might very well do. It might very well do. You know, it might very well do. Because someone's got to oversee the market. Someone's got to decide on regulations. Shocking as it is, there you go.
Just as the Scottish nationalists are doing everything they can to tear the UK apart, it looks like the UK is strengthening its overseas hands as its economic and political boundaries are redefined.
And they are going to be very, very bad, especially economically. Especially economically. Like I say, COVID, to live in a world where COVID hadn't happened. Generally, to live in a world where COVID hadn't happened. The Brexiteers would be freaking out because there would be far more chaos going on than the Brexiteers would want to admit. But like I say, we'll never know, but don't worry. Don't worry. We will be finding out pretty soon in 2022 where COVID starts to go away and the world starts to get back to normal. Fingers crossed.
The EU's shackles just clinked to the floor, and I wonder how the Europhiles are feeling right now as Britain expands into another free trade area, minus the authoritarian overlord fat cats deciding the finer details of our everyday lives.
This is so ridiculous, but it's so typical of the rhetoric that gets deployed by the Brexiteers. Even before 2016, this is the level of rhetoric that they were employing. The evil EU. The EU are evil. That's essentially the level of rhetoric that they were pushing. And now we're going to join an economic bloc based on pure pure fantasy. Not a single thing about Brexit makes a single bit of sense. Politically, it doesn't make sense. Economically, it doesn't make sense. None of it does. It is based on a fantasy idea of a UK that can never, ever exist again. Because that UK that they are thinking about had an empire and could basically control those countries to whatever it wanted. It could extort all its resources, and then British companies basically had a captive market because our colonies were not allowed to trade with any other countries except us. It's a bit easy to be the largest trading power in the world when essentially you say to your colonies, yeah, you can't import anything else from any different country except us.
Yes, you know the type I mean, the ones with the still European lettering surrounding their social media profile photo, as if Brexit somehow transported the UK to Antarctica. But I will...
I'll tell you one thing. The Brexit hasn't done. It hasn't teleported the UK into the Pacific Ocean. You know, an anchor did not just suddenly get pulled up and we've gone sailing off into the bright blue. Not happened. Not only that, I really, really do wonder what is going to happen when the CTTP evolves and gets bigger. In fact, let's have a look at that. Let's see if there's something talking about that. Of no, let's see. CP. Sorry, this is CP. Can't remember now. Where are we? It's got to be here somewhere. That's it. Yes, the CPTPP. That's it. That's what we're looking for. CP. CPTP. Let's see. Oh, here we are. What's next for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the TTP? Is that, how recent is that? That's the 4th of February. That's in 2019. Yeah, we'll go for that. What's next for the Trans-Pacific Partnership? That might have it. What's next for the Trans-Pacific Partnership? So after the withdrawal from the US, Asia countries have forged ahead. So they've left the door open for the United States to rejoin. When was this? Oh no, this is 2021, 1st of February, so it's not that old. So the new version of the pact is called the Comprehensive Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, hence the CTPP, keeping most of the original intact. Biden says he does not support rejoining the TTP as it stands, but he may try to renegotiate it to include stronger labor and environmental provisions. So this is part of why they want to join it, because if we do join it, then they can justify lowering our workers' rights and standards. Who knew? Who guessed? Who guessed? Who guessed joining that such a thing might be a way to do that? So the impetus for what became the TPP was a 2005 trade agreement between a small group of Pacific Rim countries comprising Brunei, Chile, New Zealand, and Singapore. In 2008, George Bush announced the United States would begin trade talks with this group, leading Australia, Vietnam, and Peru to join. The talks proceeded. The group extended to include Canada, Japan, Malaysia, and Mexico. There's 12 countries in all. 2009, Obama continued the talks. In 2011, Hillary Clinton framed on the TTP as the centerpiece of the United States strategic pivot towards the Asia-Pacific region. This is so. What did the parties actually agree to? The TTP text consisted of 30 chapters covering tariffs on goods, services, and intellectual property rights, e-commerce rules, labor and environmental standards, and dispute resolution mechanisms. So there's your court right there, and many other aspects of global trade. The goal of this ambitious deal was one spanning several continents, covering some 40% of world trade, was to fully create an integrated economic area and established consistent rules for global investment. So once again, creating rules. Does Jeff seem to care about that we're going to have these Pacific people dictating and butting their way into our lives? I don't think he seems to care. So some provisions that are in it include the elimination of reduction of tariffs, liberalization of trade services, investment rules, e-commerce guidelines, intellectual property protections, labor environmental standards. How would benefit the United States? Not interested in that at the moment. What drove opposition to the TPP? So what is the CTP and how is it different? So after Trump withdrew from the TTP, the remaining 11 signatories, known as the TTP 11, continue. How many times are we going to say that in this conversation? Continued talks with the aim of salvaging a pact without the United States. Their efforts were successful, leading to the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was signed in March of 2018. It has already been ratified by the vast majority of its members and has entered into force for those countries on December 30th, 2018. While much of the CTTP remains unchanged from the original TTP, trade experts say there are many important differences. These are largely changes to the removal or the measures pushed by Washington that were unpopular with other participants. The largest, most suggestive change centers on intellectual property. In TPP negotiations, Washington pushed for harder and for longer for copyright terms, automatic patent extensions, separate protections for new technologies, including the so-called biologics, and a cutting-edge class of medications. This was largely opposed by other participants, and these provisions were removed from the new agreement, and the investment chapter was also modified. Members kept the ISDS provision, so that's all those secret courts. So not only do we join that, we also join one with many other companies in different countries that could sue us. Fantastic. Fantastic to know. Modified, kept them as precision. They limit its scope, but so it's slightly less, but we'll see about that. Some timelines for implementation or certain measures were also altered, and some labour and environmentally rules were partially relaxed. The current members specify that the removed provisions are only suspended and a distinct intended to signal that they could be used and reinstated if the United States does re-intend to join. So what's in store for the pact? The TTP and the CPTPP were explicitly written with an eye towards expansion. During the original negotiations, for instance, South Korea was seen as another future likely member. More recently, Thailand and Colombia have expressed interest in joining. Taiwan has as well, but its accession to the agreement was framed as a mechanism for confronting China and could draw opposition from Beijing. In October of 2018, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said the United Kingdom, despite its geographical distance, could be welcomed into the CTP with open arms. So there's a potential that Japan would definitely be okay for us, including the potential for CTP member states to use the agreement as a diplomatic framework for the coming years. On the 1st of February 2021, a year after its formal departure from the European Union, the UK has requested to join the group. For the US, however, it remains uncertain. So yeah, a lot more closer joining there for the US rather than a state of play for Japan, for the UK. Let's go back, see what the other ones were. What's this? The Rusai.org. What's this? Oh yeah, here's a good one. So in this one about the UK and the CTPP, one titled here, "So Near and Yet So Far." Regardless of the realities of physical distance, the fundamental question remains: how can the UK, firmly anchored northwest of the European landmass, connect itself more closely to Asia, home of the world's largest populations and fastest growing economies? Asia's economic heft means that it will play an increasing role in shaping rules and norms of trade, investment and standards on region and far beyond. Moreover, as China's foreign policy grows more assertive, questions of national security in the region and power balance are becoming more intertwined with questions of economics, trade and investment. These are very knotty issues for Asian countries and for the UK too. Hence the UK's increasing focus on the Indo-Pacific strategy. Its membership is one of relatively a low-cost way with no clear drawbacks, or getting closer to high-growth countries that are committed to trade liberalization with a rules-based system. So, yeah, that's how it really takes to it. Really, it's all about it is going to be all about essentially getting rid of as many rules and protections as possible. That's it. It's all about getting rid of regulation. Shock horror. On the question of distance, yes, the UK is a long way from Japan and Australia, but Peru and Mexico are also a long way from Asia too. It takes longer to fly to Singapore in non-pandemic times from Toronto or Ottawa than from London. If Canada is also a member, then why not the UK? Distance does matter in trade because, for the most part, trade costs are higher with countries that are the most distant. Shock horror. Trade economists use a term called trade gravity model to analyze trade patterns. The larger the economies and the lower the trade costs, the higher the levels of trade and travel. But its trade costs are the matter here, not the distance per se. Concertization, I think, is and other innovations have reduced the cost of shipping physical goods and technology, and it is now enabling greater trade in services through remote operations. The UK's strength in services means that this benefits disproportionately from liberalisation in the service trade. It will only grow in its importance to the world economy, and Asia's economy are rebounding the quickest from the pandemic, turning to potential pre-pandemic growth trajectories. Other countries have announced the desire to join it, namely South Korea. Strikingly, China too has stated that it will favorably consider also joining. So again, the idea for joining this really doesn't make sense on paper. It really, really doesn't. Yeah, we join it, but then what are the potential benefits? Again, we're trading with countries halfway around the world. And as I said, shockingly again later, trade costs money. The further you go, the further it costs. Shocking, I know, but there you go. Oh, so here's an interesting one. Here's an interesting one that I think's worth covering. So we'll go over this one because I think me and Jeff might in particular here might have some common ground. Of course, how we actually solve this problem and the policies that we want in place to solve this problem would probably differ wildly, incredibly wildly. So the title of this video is Hundreds of Thousands of the Joseph Rowntree Foundation. And yes, the Joseph Rowntree Foundation is part of the same company that makes Rowntree's fruit pastels, if you didn't know.
Hello there. Up to 1 million households face being made homeless as the pandemic freeze on evictions is lifted.
Of course, again, this is going to be quite worrying because we are not yet fully open properly. We are not yet back to that level of pre-COVID. There are lots of people still unemployed, still in furlough. Companies are still not operating at 100% as they were pre this point. It's going to cause a major problem. This is why one of the things that is quite popular and quite favorable at the moment, with I think a 84% rating from the public, would be if people got essentially a UBI, but it's not called a UBI, Universal Basic Income. It's called the recovery, what are they calling it now? The recovery monetary fund. Essentially, the government will pay you money for the next, I think it was like year and a half, so that people can get back on their feet and not have to worry about something like this.
As per usual, please like, subscribe, and comment below.
Oh yes, and please do like and share this video. It means absolutely good for the channel. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page and a link to my Buy Me a Coffee, where you can buy me a coffee. And thank you to all those people who do support the channel that way.
According to the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, now that the pandemic eviction ban is ending, around 5% of renters have either received an eviction notice or been told they may be evicted.
And again, that's absolutely shocking, really is. And the fact that the government thinks that it's a good idea to to get rid of this, even though it's that the pandemic is still potentially in its effects are still in full swing, is an incredibly bad move. Incredibly bad move. And the number of families looking at being made homeless, it's a shocking amount. It's an absolutely shocking amount. But anyway, I'm just gonna nip to Lou for 5 minutes. Oh, anyway, that's that break done. Oof. So essentially, really here, this is again something that me and Jeff can actually agree on, shockingly. This obviously happening is going to be a massive blow to so many people. And I've said to a lot of said this before, potentially the rest of this year and 2022 is not going to be a very good year for a whole lot of people, in this country.
That's 400,000 households. And 11% of renters, about 1 million households, are in fear of being evicted in the next 3 months. And half of those have children.
So what we do to solve this is we extend the eviction ban. Simple as that. Simple as that. Extend the eviction ban, keep it in place, job done.
And JRF also says 1.7 million renting households are worried about paying their rent over the same period. 20%.
So again, another really shocking figure. But this is people who have been out of work, or maybe even on furlough, or maybe even lost their jobs to COVID. Of course, they're going to be incredibly worried about paying their rent. But again, how do we solve this? Put the extension back in force. Don't evict people. It's so simple. So simple. Yeah, but the free market, yeah. Sometimes you've got to place people's well-being over the importance of your economy. Shocking as that is, that's why we have workers' rights and consumer protections. Because the market should not be free to dictate stuff like this. As shocking as that is.
Percent of all renters. So it seems that no one will really have been spared from eviction by these pandemic rules, only had that inevitable eviction delayed into a perfect storm of timing.
And only if we extended this, we might be able to solve this problem.
With the only thing likely to slow this down being court time and bailiff availability. And this will, in all probability, cause a wave of bankruptcies, leaving many a landlord unable to recoup their losses from months of unpaid rent. And some of those landlords may also end up losing everything.
Yeah, that could be actually political problem. Oh, thank you very much. How do we say your name? Big Zamapalo. Thank you very much. Greetings from Vienna to all. Well, hello to Vienna from Yorkshire. Thank you very much for your support there, sir. But yeah, easiest way to solve this, Jeff. Easiest way to solve this. Extend this block on evictions. Easiest political move you could do. But that might not happen because, shockingly of all, guess which party has the biggest number of landlords as MPs? If you guess the Tories, congratulations. Yeah, you are right. Someone please think of the landlords, please. And yeah, you are right. The house prices will fall. Again, which will be a good thing, but it will cause quite a big economic shock. And I've said before, we need to really tackle landlords on this. I think one of the biggest, me personally, I would love to just stop all non-commercial landlording, meaning no landlords whatsoever. However, I know that's completely impractical. I know at the moment it's completely impractical. So one thing I think would make a really good move is stop what's called chain renting. This is by where sometimes you may see someone rent from someone, and then actually you're paying your rent to someone who is not the owner of that freehold or that property. You're paying it to someone who is subletting. That's the correct term. I should remember this. I used to work for one of these companies. We won't get into that, but yeah, subletting is incredibly bad. I think subletting should be something that we should do away with. The other thing I would love to do is sort out the fact that in Europe, the average time for someone to rent is like, 10 years, I think it is in Europe. I think the average time to rent in Europe is 10 years and more, depending on which country you are in, but it's around 10 years. In the UK, it's 3. And I actually like that idea, Nicola, that Nicola's just put in, which would be an amazing thing to do. The idea of renters union, that would be a fantastic thing to do. I think the idea of bringing in rent control is another fantastic way to do it. I think maybe bringing in, maybe putting it maybe at the council level. So it's the local council that dictates what the rent is. Could be having ways to take your landlord to court, saying that the rent they're charging is unfair. Might be, again, another idea that we could do. There's so much we could do. So much that we could do. And we're not doing it. But everyone agrees across the political spectrum, we are in a housing crisis. I say we are not in a housing crisis. We are in a housing disaster. So many people cannot afford to get houses. And if you get trapped in renting, you can't afford to save up then for a house. The way that this happens is unbelievable. And to bring it back to what we said at the beginning, that dude said right at the beginning, if you were here, I shared a link on Twitter today about a apartment block that was built in London that has a swimming pool that connects to two big apartment blocks on like the 36th floor. This was built by the Tories because they did away with the area that was going to get built to essentially build social housing, to build massive luxury flats. Again, Tories, like I say, next week we're going to do Darren Grimes. Tories, according to Darren Grimes, the party of the working class.
Now, most of that unpaid rent arises from tenants who can't pay, but some comes from those that sniffed an advantage of the COVID situation and won't pay.
Oh dear. We've got a can't pay, won't pay situation. First of all, there are generally people who can't pay because they are, again, being out of work. Maybe they're unemployed. Maybe their furlough does not cover them being able to rent and eat food at the same time. And of course, we have this typical, very Tory and right-wing tactic of going, oh, look, there are these people who are taking advantage of it. They're trying to, get at you, the system.
The JRF says, in contrast to homeowners, renters have received very little targeted support despite being more likely to have faced a drop in income. In April, local housing allowance rates were refrozen at September 2019 levels, resulting in a real terms income cut for renters in receipt of this benefit, despite the real cost of renting continuing to rise across the country.
Yep, completely true. I agree with everything that's on this screen at the moment. Like I say, it's from obviously Joseph Rowntree Foundation, and they are absolutely a fantastic foundation. A fantastic foundation. Oh, yeah, sorry, I should clarify, yes. The pool isn't as high as 36 floors. It's just on the 36th floor. So, yeah, I agree 100% because this rent is continuing to rise while wages are continuing not only to stagnate, but stay at an unpayable level. Universal credit has not risen to meet these wages as not wages, but levels as well, meaning that there are hundreds of thousands of people looking at going homeless. That is a bad thing.
And so the JRF is calling for a targeted package of taxpayer-funded grants to support renters in arrears using the discretionary housing payment system.
Yep, I agree with that. That would be a good way to help solve this problem as well.
Something a lot of people may not be that happy with. But we are in a lot of cases talking about people being hit by a storm not of their making. So the question is, would you...
Yes, it's a storm not of their making, Jeff. Congratulations. But while he did provide a reasonable solution to potential this problem, it does not get to the heart of this problem, because you've got to solve the heart of this problem even more. Because as I think it was a dude again, you're getting quite a lot of mentions in this stream, dudes. As dude said, we are trying to solve the problems of poverty and inequality in this country, and that is not an easy thing to do. It is incredibly hard because different areas are affected in different ways. One thing that works in one area might not work in another. And we've got to seriously consider, especially being a Labour member, looking at ways we can bring in rights to help support renters. I think that will be a step forward. I think banning subletting, that you can't re-rent out something that someone is already renting to you, I think that would be a fantastic first step. I think that housing estates should now be at least 60% automatically be building social housing, so that any housing estate is automatically at least 60%. I think that new builds should be frozen from renting for a period of 15 years, so that new builds can't be snapped up by landlords to rent out. Again, there are some streets in Barnsley that are 80% owned by landlords. And that is a shocking number. I keep on saying one day we're going to go and have a stroll down there, and I can show you exactly what I mean. But that's the case. And these aren't, 4-bedroom houses. These are the, the small, all attached, 2 up, 2 down places, which would be perfect for social housing or people buying them to get on the property ladder. We've got to find a way. We've got to find a way to solve this problem, because we have been in a housing crisis for well over a decade at this point, calling it a housing crisis. So let's call it what it is. We are in a housing disaster. And if we do not do something about it, we are going to encounter even more problems stemming from this. Dude, you just killed Airbnb. True. Good. Because a lot of these landlords go and buy houses like that on Airbnb and then try and do that. And they just use it as a hotel. And then they do not pay the same stuff that a hotel would have to pay. So Airbnb is just a complete getting round tax for not having to pay the same fees as a hotel. And to be honest, like I say, Airbnb is a massive problem. Massive problem. I mean, I've got friends who live in Edinburgh. And the joke is, in Edinburgh, if you go to see a flat or apartment that you like, then you better get your running shoes on, because you're going to have to sprint down to the agent to try and put your towel on the deck chair, because the houses will just go like that. And you are right. Again, this is another thing this stems from: the gig economy. Thank you again, dudes. We need to tackle 0-hour contracts. Outright banning them would be a fantastic step forward. And going all the way back to David Cameron and the coalition government with the Lib Dems, they were saying that they would deal with 0-hour contracts. Every single Tory manifesto has promised to do something about 0-hour contracts and has done nothing about them. Henceforth, we can pretty much take at this moment that their inaction is an tacit approval of 0-hour contracts. Once again, according to Darren Grimes, Tory party, the party of the working class. it's going to cause huge problems. It is going to cause huge problems down the line if we do not start actually tackling this and taking it seriously. Because did you know, bizarrely of all this, currently Robert Jerrick, the guy who is currently our housing minister, is currently our longest serving housing minister since the coalition. Shocking, I know. Not one of them before Robert Jerrick lasted 8 months. This is so shocking. It's so shocking. But, you know, we've got to call it what it is. This is an absolute housing disaster. This is not a housing crisis anymore. It is a housing disaster. And we need to actually start seriously tackling these problems. Because if we don't, this will lead to other further problems and further increase the not only the inequality we see in this country, but the poverty we see in this country. So I don't know if Jeff would agree with what the suggestions that I've put forward there. Like I say, policy is the key to politics. And to be honest, a lot of Brexiteers and even a lot of the right wing in the UK do not talk about policy because they really can't, because they haven't got really, they do have policy, but they just don't want to talk about the realities of what their policies actually do, which is, well, we're about to see. We're about to see what those policies are going to turn into, especially in the next couple of years. So where are we? Oh, it's almost 9 o'clock. So we only covered 2 videos of Jeff today, but I think, to be honest, we got more of a more than our feed's worth of Jeff today. So once again, thank you so much, you all, for joining me. It's been a fantastic time as always. I still don't know what I'm going to call this. We need to think of a name for this. I just don't want to call it like, you know, Taylor Wednesday or Walker Wednesday or something like that. We need to come up with a name for this that we do on a Wednesday. But yeah, well, we need to think of it. So if you've got an idea, please do send it my way. But as is always, please do remember to hit that like and share button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and of course my Buy Me Coffee link as well, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you so much for joining me. As always, I've been Bowler Hat Man. Thank you for joining me in this wonderful time. But like I say, thank you for joining me. I think Max is going to do a live stream tonight, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, at 9:30, I think. So, you know, go join him, tell him I sent you. I still need to contact him about us two having a double session on Jeff. A 2-on-1 Jeff session. If that happens, I'm going to call it that. But yes, I am terrible at ending a stream. You all know that perfectly well by now. So, as is always, thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you on Saturday morning as usual for our good morning walk. And of course, watch out for the rest of the week for my other videos on British politics. And we'll see you all very soon.